to the Rant Live. Welcome, everyone, to the Rant Live. Today is Friday, September 9th, and I'm John Furlese with my co-host, Evan Altman. Is it sunny or cloudy, Indiana, today?
Oh, it's very sunny today. It's been real nice the last several days.
Excellent. Well, that's good. It's we're hoping for clouds here. It's like we have the opposite thing going in Arizona, right? It's like when it's cloudy, you wake up and it's cloudy. It's like so refreshing, especially any clouds to cover the sun that is our enemy down here, at least for now, is a good thing. But on to the Cubs and our Cubs content. Just a side note, my internet is in and out, so if I pop off, then Evan is going to do this solo. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But he basically does it solo, anyways.
We'll see what happens. I'll just talk to myself. It's fine. I won't even know you're gone for at least 5 minutes.
So yeah, the Cubs, it's like we're getting to a point in the season, and we've been at this point most of the season actually, but really now in September where we need to start talking and focusing a lot more on the future and what's going to be happening in the offseason. I think, what we're seeing these days from the Cubs on the field doesn't really matter as much. It's good to see guys that are getting call-ups and things like that. But really, we're not going to see many more guys than we've already seen coming up that are going to stay on the Cubs 40-man roster. And I think that's important to get into and something that we've spoken about and we should talk about. And I think something that's kind of come to the surface over the last week or so, and it's the conversation around Matt Mervis, really, where, here's a guy where normally you'd see him called up, and I think we've been kind of scratching our heads as to why that hasn't happened. And now there are indications that the reason that that's probably not happening is because of this 40-man roster crunch the Cubs have, along with the Rule 5 draft. And if you add Matt Mervis, who is not Rule 5 eligible, to the 40-man, then you cannot add someone to protect them from the Rule 5 draft who would otherwise be eligible for that draft to the 40-man roster. And so it's kind of a juggling act that the Cubs are trying to pull off. And I'm sure they've got a board that has kind of who they want on the 40-man roster, who they want to protect from the Rule 5 draft. And they're going to lose some players probably to the Rule 5 draft. And I haven't gone down the list and looked at everybody, but I think that, to me, that makes a lot more sense as to why we haven't seen Matt Mervis called up. It's unfortunate, but I think you're definitely going to see him on the big league team next year, if not opening with them.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing to me that's still weird about that, right, is let's say, and again for context, so the Cubs have 150 players throughout their minor league rosters, and as of this coming Rule 5 draft, I don't know the exact date. It's been like the last day of the winter meetings, right? So it's like mid-December-ish, early to mid. 84 of their players right now are eligible for either the Rule 5 draft or minor league free agency, one way or the other. So 84 out of 150 guys across their minor league affiliates and the various, I think, stateside groups are in one way, shape, or form going to possibly be moving on. Now, a lot of those, like the Cubs could agree to new deals with them, new minor league deals. They don't get selected in Rule 5, they stick around, things like that, right? They're not going to lose 84 players out of the minors. But my thing is this, there's only so many you're going to be able to protect, right? Now, we're going to see a lot of spots open up, right? Players from the 40-man roster will be maybe DFA'd. You'll see guys, obviously their contracts expire, they move on, whatever. But then I look at it and go, okay, so you protect player X on the 40-man, right? So he can't be drafted away in the Rule 5. Well, then if Mervis is going to be on the roster, say opening day or at some point, then you still got to put him on there and move someone else off of it. Now, again, you could put somebody on there and then they get right. You roster them, and then they go to the 60-day IL because they got hurt, right? So you can open up. So there are procedural ways. So yeah, this is really, it is procedural as much as anything else. I've seen some reference, and I've thought this in my head, although I didn't want to put it out there this way, is that maybe they don't want him to come up and struggle at the end of the month or the end of the season through the rest of this month and into October a little bit for various reasons, whether it be developmental, whether they want to parlay this great season into tradability, right? Big trade focus there. But I look at it, go, they need lefty power, and they really need a first. I'm not sold on Alfonso Rivas being the answer, like in any way, shape. I think we talked about this last time. The power is not there, and he's a great dude. He's got good on base skills. He's a pretty good defensive player, but that'd be fine if he was a catcher. You know what I mean? But like, he's not. He's a first baseman, and he doesn't have any. He doesn't play anywhere else. I guess he's played in the outfield a couple times, but again, they're going to have a full outfield. So basically, he's limited to first base. You're not going to DH him, right? So, and he's also left-handed. If I'm choosing between those two, and certainly like at this point, I mean, Schwindel's been kind of languishing on the injured list for most of the time since he got demoted. I'm reasonably sure, again, that the organization will part ways with him. There's a spot right there, right? As Jedi of Chicago notes here, Ortega and Bodie and more than likely McKinstry, those guys are all going to go. And I get it, and I still keep going back to like, why the hell was David Bodie the one that got called back up when they only get 2 expansion spots now on the roster, right? It goes from 26 to 28, not out to 40 like it used to. And I get that because some of those games were a joke, but like, why not go ahead and pull that man? Some of that's almost, I guess, doing the players a favor. They're not just left out to, strung out at the end of the season. But I don't know, man. There's a lot of stuff there that I'm just like, why not just move forward with it? But whatever. We'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, this goes to kind of what we had talked about in the last show, which is it seems like the Cubs have been really slow to do kind of the things that we think or thought they should be doing, like those more obvious things. And I'm sure there's a reason for that. They want to be diligent in how they go forward and how they proceed, obviously. But, and so they have a behind the scenes plan that we're not privy to. And obviously all those things kind of come into play when they're making these moves and doing the things that they're doing. And the other thing is that, I mean, to me, it felt like the Cubs the other day, I don't know, was it Wednesday? It felt like maybe it was yesterday. It was a game yesterday. It felt like they tried to lose that game, right? I mean, like some of the moves that they made, Zach McKinstry at the top of the order, that makes no sense whatsoever. If you're legitimately trying to win a baseball game, Zach McKinstry does not belong at the top of the order. I'm sorry.
No.
And so they're doing things that don't make a lot of sense. Pulling Adrian Sampson when they pulled him just because he gave up 1 home run and then they pulled him.
Yeah.
And so it's just some of the moves that they're making, bringing in a lighter to close the game. It's just that to me, that had the feel of just trying to find a way to lose. And I think that we may see that more going down the stretch because the Cubs are so close to, as you called out in your post the other day, so close to being in that top 5 or bottom 5, I guess, for the top draft pick and increasing their odds in that lottery of getting that number 1 spot, that I think that why not play for that? At the end of the day. And so I think we're going to see a lot of subpar baseball and some really strange moves down the stretch. I could be wrong, but I think what they've shown over the past month is that they have the ability to win games. Their bullpen is definitely a weak point, and they've got some defensive issues for sure that they've had all season long. But you've seen strength where they've been really is in their approach at the plate. Their bat to ball skills have been really good all season long. And there's a lot of, and we can get into that a little bit later. I've got some stats here, but so you see some areas where they're good and you see the areas where they're obviously bad. And I think that we're going to continue to see them highlight the areas that they're obviously bad, such as playing Chris Morel at third base. I mean,
God.
he's not a good third baseman. I don't. I know he played the majority of his time at third base, but I mean, like that spin move he tried to do the other day, he didn't need to spin first off, and he's like the double, triple. I've never seen a third baseman clutch pump the ball 3 times, and he's done that on several occasions where he gets it in his glove and then he
Yeah.
throws it. I'm like, just throw the ball.
Well, he's creating. It's like he's got such a strong arm, right? And it's like he spends all that time to like, dude, how about save yourself the 3 extra seconds that you're spending pumping that thing every time and just throw it over to first like a normal human being. Like the other day, the one he fielded, that little infield chopper that he cuts across, he bobbles it a little bit. A run is already coming, so it was too late to get the runner coming home. And then there's no way he's getting a runner at first either, but he still uncorks just a crazy hard throw that skips off into the stands, right? It's like the decisions on his throws are what, and it again, he's a young player, relatively speaking, right? But it does very much remind me of watching kids when they're younger, who just they just don't have the baseball IQ to know when to put the thing in their pocket.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like somebody needs to yell at him, like,
skills.
Yeah, like eat it, like and you can see it the whole time. I'm like, no, Chris, no, and but that's the thing is like he wants to uncook because he knows how strong his arm is, and he believes he can make that, but he's got to know when to put that thing in his pocket, and it's cost the Cubs. I mean, I want to say several runs, right? Not just flat out errors. And so I was just thinking about this the other day too, because a lot of people said, well, why would they get, they could have Horner at short and Madrigal at second and Morel at third. Like, no, dude, no. I do not want to see now. Can he play there on occasion? Sure. I want Morel as a utility guy at this point. I don't want him in any one position permanently.
I agree.
Been my thought the whole time.
If anything, he belongs in center field, and the reason is because he's got the speed, right? He's one of the fastest players on the team, and he's got a pretty good glove out there, and he's got a strong arm. Those are all the characteristics you want in a center fielder.
Mm-hmm.
But if anything, to me, this highlights the fact that the Cubs absolutely have to get a third baseman, and that's where we're talking about, like Carlos Correa or maybe Xander Bogaerts, that they can plug in at third base. Because they don't have a third baseman right now. It's not going to be David Bodie. I mean, if you look at outs above average right now, Morel's -3 and Wisdom's -10.
Oh.
Last year Wisdom was 6 outs above average. And so, man, he has really gone downhill. And so they have to get a third baseman if they want to be competitive next year, because who do they have at third? I mean, even in the minors, they've got, some talent, but it's too young right now. Right. And so I don't know of anybody.
Slaughter can play over there. They've got some guys that can play there, but it's not. Yeah. I mean, Devers is a possibility. There's thoughts out there. That's a position they need to shoot, like both corners on the infield. Right, which is kind of funny because we went for almost a year, right? A few months at least, maybe not quite on both positions, but thinking, man, Wisdom and Schwisdom, right? Third baseman, first baseman, cool. Hey,
we were lying to ourselves. Come on.
Well, and I don't think at any point now. I guess there were some people who probably thought that could be the answer, right? I think that their advanced age was a telltale sign, right? That it wasn't going to happen. That's not what you would carry into a new version of competitiveness, but at least the idea that they could hold down those spots on an interim basis, that ended up being, unfortunately, a much shorter run than I think we would have hoped for now, other than helping the team be kind of bad, because now you've got Wisdom, like they were showing it the other day, the players making starts over at first base, right? I think what Rivas is has he made the most, or is Wisdom or Schwindel still ahead of him, and then Rivas, and then it's like Wisdom and Higgins. And I mean, they are absolutely patchworking the hell out of those positions right now.
And Higgins is probably the best out of all those guys. I mean, the play he made.
Higgins could play both of those. Yeah, give me that dude as the backup catcher, right? Assuming Contreras moves on. And I don't love the Gomes Higgins combo, like, super want to embrace that and again, but we're not talking about, if we're talking about one more year, right? If next year is kind of their 15, again, not saying
I think it's a
they'll compete,
14/15. I don't see next year
yeah.
them being competitive for the division. I
It
just
depends on
don't.
it depends on how much they spend, right? If they legitimately go to a $200 million payroll, they absolutely could contend, just because
Sure,
that
sure.
that would be right. It again, that's a big if, right? But that would, getting 200 million would basically be getting 3 top flight free agents. So depending on who you replace, and how well the players, there's other things we got to look at in 15. Like, everybody who came up played really well, right? I mean, that's part of it, is they were able to just, oh, here we'll call up another guy and another guy and another guy, and oh shit, they're all playing like starters.
How
Everyday
convenient.
players right out of the gate, which is great. But yeah, I would love to see them be able to set up some everyday type players. They absolutely need more power in that lineup. I mean, you see how quickly that can turn games around. Suzuki is hitting for more power lately, and getting Reyes in there, he's just dropping bombs all over the place. And now Nico Horner's picking up extra base hits. Like, that is what they need, and that's one of the things they have not had nearly enough of. That was the lament before, was that they had a lot of power but no on base, and so you'd see a bunch of solo shots. That's kind of still the case, unfortunately, too often. But
Yeah.
they just need to round that roster out. But it's just, like I said, it's just frustrating, because there are some spots that you look at and just sit there and think, man, why are we seeing this situation? I don't want to talk about a specific player at any one spot, but why are we seeing that situation play out? It's a bunch of round pegs and square holes, or square pegs and round holes, or either way, the pegs and the holes don't match up. And
Yeah.
that's just what's kind of tough about this part of the year, is you're kind of watching them do stuff, and it doesn't feel, some of them feels like, yeah, I get it, right? Watching Hayden Wisniewski come out and piggyback Wade Miley, which I assume we'll see again on Sunday. That makes sense. That's a cool thing to see. But a lot of these other ones are like, yeah, I don't really want to see Chris Morel over at third, or I don't really care to see Patrick Wisdom over at first. I don't want to watch these weird
No.
experimental things that are only happening because they kind of have to.
Yeah, I mean, defensively speaking, Nico Horner is by far the best defender on the Cubs. He's 6th in Major League Baseball with an outs above average of 14. He's exceptional, probably the best shortstop in all of baseball, to be honest. And then behind him, the next best defender for the Cubs,
It's got to be
if you're
half,
looking at
right?
just outs above average, is Ian Happ, and he's got 2. He's
Yeah.
94th in Major League Baseball. And you start talking, I'm concerned about Seiya Suzuki's defense in right field. He has made some really bad plays. He doesn't communicate well with the center fielder. And I talked about this on the last show. It seems like he's confused as to what balls are his and what balls are not his. He's got a -6 outs above average, and maybe he gets better, with some the spring training, with some full spring training versus what they had this year. But I'm not totally sold on Seiya Suzuki being like the right fielder of the future for the Cubs, because I just haven't seen it. I've seen stretches where he's good with the bat, and he's made some decent throws from right field, but he hasn't really wowed me defensively at all in right field. In fact, there are more times where the ball's hit to him that I'm like concerned he may not get it than I am like amazed by the play that he's made.
Well, where do you put him if he's not in right?
I'm not saying there's a solution there.
Yeah,
I'm just
because Brennan
saying,
Davis is going to have to play one of those corners pretty soon if he
yeah,
comes up. And then, do you trade Happ in the offseason and then you move Suzuki over to left?
maybe.
Because right field at Wrigley can get a little funky.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's to say the least. And I mean, left field in the National League in general, and certainly in the Central, we've seen it with Adam Dunn and Matt Holliday in the past. Like, left field was the DH in,
like the safe
in the
space.
NL Central before you had the DH, right? You just,
yeah.
You got a stone glove. We're gonna stick you in left. I mean, and that's where Schwarber started out, right? And he certainly made some improvements over time with various things, but there's a reason they had him in left. And then there were occasional times when maybe they'd go to a different park. Was it when they were playing Pittsburgh that he was in right for those games, just because the way the field sets up is different in some parks, right? So I do wonder if you see that. Do you see Brendan Davis maybe playing right field with Suzuki flipping over to left on occasion? I don't know. But that is certainly something to hope that he can improve upon, as he continues to grow in his MLB career.
Yeah. The Cubs as a team have negative 23 outs above average, which is 27th in Major League Baseball. And that number doesn't, the outs above average number doesn't necessarily correlate to winning. Obviously there's a lot of other factors that go into it. For example, the Tigers are 11 outs above average. They're 6th in Major League Baseball, and the Rockies are 2nd at 21 outs above average. So you can be good defenders and still not be a good team, but that's kind of part of the equation. And then as I looked a little further into pitching. So the expected weighted on base percentage, the Cubs are 25th. Their expected slugging percentage, they're 24th. So they're giving up basically the 25th worst slugging to opponents. And their actuals are higher than expected rates, right? And so when your actuals on the pitching side are higher than your expected rates, it means probably that's because of your defense. And so that's where we start to see the correlation between, their outs above average being bad and their pitching performing actually worse than you would expect it to perform. But on the batting side, it gets a little bit better. On the batted side, you got they're still bad. Their expected weighted on base average and slugging is 22nd and 24th, but their actuals are higher than expected. And so that's where you're batting better. And to me, what that says is that they're just having quality at bats. It says Greg Brown and Johnny Washington are doing a good job, teaching bat to ball skills and pitch recognition. And so to me, that's a very, very encouraging sign, because I think that's a hard thing to teach, and that's a hard thing to get right, especially with kind of lower skill players. I think the Cubs have a lot of right now that are getting bad. And I don't know but am I still there?
Yeah, you're coming back. I was about to take the baton.
Slightly back. But I think what that says is that if you've got guys that have good bat to ball skills and you bring in really good offensive guys, which as we mentioned, the Cubs need to bring in a third baseman, they need to bring in a first baseman, that's going to dramatically improve. And on the pitching side of things, like, I'm not at all concerned about the pitching. They do need to go out and pick up some free agents in terms of who they have in their bullpen, but they've got Thompson, Stroman, Steele, Wisniewski, Brown, and Hendricks, who we forget about, all there that could all be starters next year. And somebody's going to have to come out of the bullpen, right? I mean, I'm guessing it's Thompson. But I don't like Wisniewski the other day was just like lights out. Now, I don't know if he's going to be able to keep that up, right? Like, his horizontal movement on the slider was incredible. And so,
I want to point something out on that. Well, on a couple fronts, because if you recall, right, they did bring up Alzolay as a reliever. They brought Steele up as a reliever. They brought Thompson up as a reliever. You can have those guys kind of build into that, and especially if they're going to piggyback, right? If they do bring back Smiley or Miley or someone like that, and you want to offset those, and then you go, again, lefty righty on the piggyback like that, and look at that, they used 2 pitchers to get through a game. You know what I mean? And that that's tremendous given how the crappy their bullpen has been. But I think we'll see more of that. Whether that's Javier Assad has been making some starts here. I don't know that continues, but who knows, right? Jeremiah Estrada. We're talking about Danis Correa. We're talking about a guy like Cole Franklin who could move quickly through the system. DJ Hers could start making his way up a little bit higher. And I know he went on the dev list recently. They've got a ton of pitchers, and I would like to see them get more into. I don't want them to be like the Rays in terms of not spending a bunch of money. I'd like to see them be like the Rays in terms of being very diverse and flexible from a pitching standpoint, using an opener, piggybacking
Yeah.
guys, going with 6-man rotations, whatever you need to do, not just to fit these guys in, but to make certain that you can get enough work for all of them. And we'll see some trades and that sort of thing. But that's going back to kind of what you'd mentioned about balancing things out. That's where I've kind of come back full circle on the Nick Madrigal thing, because if he can continue, and I know a lot of people, oh, they're just singles, man. Yeah, but how long were we sitting there going like, damn it, please just hit a few singles. You guys don't need to try to hit home runs every time. And there's value to that in a guy who can carry a high average and get on base. He's not going to take a ton of walks, but he is going to see a bunch of pitches. He's going to hit some little slappy singles here and there. And you need to balance the power with the contact. If they can find a way to do that, you have just a much more, because when's the last time? It was 16. It was really the last time it felt like they had what was a sustainable offensive approach, because really after that, and particularly in 18 and beyond, it went to like, all right, they're either going to score 8 or they're going to score none. Like there was no, and it would be, they'd score 1 run over 3 games or something wild.
Yeah,
like
they
that.
got away from that plate discipline that they were so good at in 15 and 16, where they'd make the starting pitcher, half the time throw 20 or more pitches in the first inning.
Yeah. And it wore guys down. And even there was a sense, I think, I know there was a sense that even if they weren't scoring early, that they were going to wear that opposing pitcher down, either get to that starter eventually or get into that bullpen, and really get after him. But I think for those opposing pitchers, I think there was a sense of foreboding there of like, you knew that team was fully capable of exploding on you at any point in the lineup, any of the batters. And so it's like that pitcher's going out there waiting for the other shoe to drop. Right? Like, oh crap. Oh no. I know they're all confident. I know they're not maybe actively thinking, shit, this is the inning where I blow up and lose it to them. But like, they were wire to wire the best team in the league the entire time. And they just had such a strong force going forward that you just felt like just about anybody could beat you. And that's simply not the case now. Yeah, part of that's because half the guys these pitchers are going up against, they don't even have a book on because they don't know who the hell they are. But there's definitely no, just avoid throwing Reyes a strike. And then, who else is really scary out there? And it's not many right now.
No, it's definitely not. But as we were talking about earlier, if you start getting those quality at bats, man, it changes the whole dynamic of the game, right? Just that simple tweak. And if you get guys that are good, quality baseball players with some power, and they're getting quality at bats, that helps your pitchers, that helps your bullpen. That helps everybody, right? Because it just changes the entire dynamic of the game. So it'll be interesting to see how the Cubs go forward. And the thing that they really have to balance, and it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, is because they've got so much talent in the minor league system and they've got all these prospects. What they don't want to have happen is what happened in, the last window that they just had, which was everybody kind of becoming a free agent all at once. I'm assuming they're having conversations about that, and I'm assuming that they're going to try to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
And so my assumption there is that they're either going to layer in how they call guys up, how they call some of these prospects up, and they're going to leave guys behind, which they can do that because if you look at their prospects, they're pretty spread out in age. They've got kind of the mid-20s prospects. They've got kind of the 21, 22, and they've got the 18 and 19-year-olds. Should be able to do that. But the trick to doing that is that you're going to have to trade some of those guys. You're going to have to, because they'll bring up the first crop and that may be good enough to get them, maybe to the division lead, at least in the wild card, right, conversation. and then there's going to be another crop that's coming up behind them. But what you can't do is, as these guys are developing the minor leagues, you can't like leave them down there forever. I mean, I guess you could, but it hurts their development. And so they're going to have to take it's going to be complicated how they balance that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and that's why I think we see a big trade, at least one trade, because they're
in the offseason.
Yeah, in the offseason coming up.
With prospects.
Yes. Because
like we're getting a big league guy. The Cubs are getting a big league guy back.
There's just too many of them, as we talked about. I mean, yes, it'd be awesome if you had a rotation that had 3 or 4 guys who are all homegrown and a bullpen that's got 5 or 6, but it's just not possible because at a certain point, if you just stockpile them up, as you noted, there's just too many. You can't develop them, whether it's at the minor league level or the major league level. You have to get them to the point where either A, they are contributing to the major league team in a meaningful way and continuing to grow as players, or you move them to another team where ideally, for the player's case, ideally that process continues, but the Cubs would get back a really strong player in return. And and that's where you kind of see with some of these guys, okay, for every Hayden Wesneski that comes up and establishes himself, hopefully he'll continue to do that. That's one more spot that's not available to someone who's currently in the minors, right? Because
exactly.
There's only so many roster spots. But speaking of which, it's funny to me to note, you noted the horizontal movement on Wesneski's slider, which is clearly a slider, but StatCast, unless it's updated, calls it a curveball. They call his cutter a slider. His slider is a curve, and it's really funny because it's like, and I get on some of those, right? If somebody has a really tight slider that does have more north-south break, but that's clearly a sweeping.
Yeah, that does seem weird.
Like, how are you even classifying that as a curveball?
Yeah, a ball that comes in.
Yeah, I mean it's, but what was cool, and I noted this about him the other day, based on what Lance Brozdowski had tweeted out, is that he lands that slider in the zone at about a 50% rate, which is better than, normal is around 43, 44%, but he gets there. And there were a few. And what's really, really incredible about it is we're not talking like putting a cement mixer down the middle. We're talking about he's getting that thing to sweep all the way across the zone and clip that outside corner against a righty or the inside corner against a lefty. So he's getting called strikes. And when you look at him, it's a lot of that's dependent upon the umpire, right? Because he's got to not be fooled by that.
Worries me.
But if you're locating that thing away, and that's what got David Bell kicked out of the game. I mean, he threw one to Barrero the other day that just, it clipped it. It was barely a strike, but it was still a strike. And he got it early enough in the count. And that, I think that put him at 0-2, right? But it wasn't his wipeout pitch, because after that, he threw one that went just a little bit further outside the Barrero foul. And then he put one a little more outside that now he swung and missed. So when you can set them up with a breaking ball like that is a called strike, or one that they've got to not necessarily chase, but if you're putting it there and it's a question of either a called strike or a pitch that you can't really barrel up, and then you've got them having to reach a little bit more, that to me was what. And then, when you can paint 96 as well, and he got such a nice run on his fastball, like it's just that was really, really encouraging to see. And I hope that continues. But there again, I think the Cubs are going to have to identify some guys that they're willing to part with. And I kind of wonder if like Alexander Canario is one of those, right? Because we're already talking about Pete Crow Armstrong, Brennan Davis. There's 2 outfielders relative to what the Cubs already have up there. And if we're talking about a Kevin Alcantara, who, man, I mean, that dude to me has like megastar potential, I think. And I just wonder if a player like Alexander Canario is going to find himself on the outside looking in, whether that's via trade or simply not really having much of a spot, because I love the power, but I just don't know if he's the guy. I could kind of see the Cubs trying to market him in a deal to kind of get something back, whether that's pitching or one of their other spots of need. That would be kind of my guess among those outfielders, with all the other guys they got coming up. But man, there's a Cardinals fan that I was conversing with on Facebook the other day, which is that was a stupid thing of me, but Cubs Insider as a site was conversing with him. It wasn't actually me. But who was trying to, and again, it was someone who, as Cardinals fans do, was trying to educate me on why the Cubs are bad and how front offices work and how the Cubs can't possibly be competitive again until 2026, right? Because they only have like 3 top 100 guys, and the rest of them all suck clearly, and that's the way that works. And I'm just like, that's the thing that bothers me, is when people look at these rankings, rather than looking up and down at the depth and the quality of a lot of the prospects the Cubs have out there. There are plenty of players throughout their system that I think some other programs or other organizations would love to have a look at. But I just thought that was funny. And then I tweeted something about that, and somebody, I said till 2026, and then somebody who was a Cubs fan replied to me and said, "Well, Jed said it was going to be a couple of years." And I'm like, what year do you think we're in? A couple is 2. If he says he thinks it'll be a couple, that's 2024. Okay, not 26. And I was like, it would be egregiously stupid and unnecessary for the Cubs to continue rebuilding until 2026. Like, did you see the crowd there yesterday? Did you see how empty it was in the ballpark? They listed the attendance at like 23,000. There's no way in hell there were 23,000 people there. There were like 5 people in the bleachers. if you went enough,
there was some room to spread out.
Yeah, given the players they have, right? The guys who are ready to come up in the next year to 2. And you're telling me, if you think in any with zero trace of irony or sarcasm, if you truly believe the Cubs need or want to wait until after 2024 to meaningfully compete, you are an idiot.
Well, that's not even possible, honestly, because if you look at the prospects that they have, and as we spoke, in terms of the guys that are on the 40-man roster and how they're going to be able to balance it, you're going to have these guys in the major leagues. I mean, there's no alternative.
And you're going to have to spend money, because their payroll is already going to drop to about $100 million. After this year,
you'd have to bring in bad players on purpose.
Right.
Then they take up spots in the 40-man roster. And they just don't have enough bad players to continue fielding a bad team, I think, is really the issue.
It is, but it was bizarre to me that a Cubs fan tried to say, well, Hoyer said it would be a couple years, so 2026 to be competitive was like a plausible thing. Like there would be 5 fans in the ball. Nobody
does something that I refuse to do, which is listen to anybody or interact with people on social media. I just don't, unless you're nice. And then if you're nice, then I'll interact with you. But typically, the jerks is just gotta brush.
Well, my first response to him just said "herp derp," so there was that. But then like this person progressively, and they were like misspelling things. It was really,
the grammar is never good.
But that's the part though that gets me, is like when you come, and I, and there's a difference, right? I totally get it. There's a shorthand that goes, although if you're going to write like full paragraphs, then we have to actually start using punctuation, capital letters, so that people can tell where your thoughts kind of break. And, I don't want to have to interpret where your punctuation is supposed to be when you're writing.
That's why you just don't read it.
Well, I shouldn't, but the problem I have with
it's not going to work. I've been trying to tell you this for like,
no, but sometimes
years.
So my biggest issue is not necessarily people who say dumb things. But
that is part of it.
That is part of it, but it's people who say really dumb things, but think what they're saying is smart, and then believe that you are dumb because you're actually, providing an intelligent, cogent train of thought, right? And so they're responding to that with something stupid to say, you are an idiot. How do they let you write this stuff? You don't know what you're talking about.
I think I think you're experiencing trolls to a certain extent here. People who just know that they can bother you, and so they do, because it's just like a sport.
Yeah, it's not even so much that though. Like some of these people are legit. Like because there's a difference between them. Like trolls are generally more mean spirited. Like a lot of these people aren't mean spirited. They truly, especially when they're Cardinals fans, they truly believe they're really, really smart about baseball and know everything there is to know. And they're just idiots. Like I said, my problem is an idiot who believes they're smart, which actually is most of them. I think. But going back to the primary
I mean,
point,
that's pretty much the
yeah,
definition, right?
if you believe the Cubs should or must or will wait for another 4 years to try to be good again, you're a moron. I mean, that is the most
Well, hey, listen,
moronic
I'd
thing.
like to believe that most of the people that are listening or watching to this show do not believe that. Um,
I would hope so. If you are, go ahead and speak up now so we can ban you because that is just it's just a dumb. I
so
mean,
I would assume that most of the people that are watching or listening actually agree with kind of like the
yeah,
have at least a consensus of kind of what the arc looks
it's
like
2
for the
years,
Cubs to
2
get back to
years.
competitiveness. And I think it starts next year,
Yeah,
as we mentioned,
absolutely.
because the Rule 5 draft, because the 40-man crunch and all the different things, this is going to be the last year, I believe, where you're going to see the Cubs really have any room for players who are below average defenders, hitters, pitchers. Um, and so that's where I think that next year they're going to be forced into being a better team, and I think that's what we can expect to see. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, though, just kind of changing the topic here for a second, is and something that I think is really interesting is happening with the Major League Baseball Players Association and kind of what's going on with minor leaguers, what's going on with the baseball's antitrust exemption, because it is being attacked at all levels. I know that currently, I think there's a congressional review of the actual antitrust exemption that's happening, which is one part of it. But the other part that I think is more significant, really, is MLBPA pushing, and they actually got the vote for more than 50% of the minor leaguers to join the union, which is huge. Which would mean that they could then collectively bargain on behalf of the minor league players. And essentially, the way that the whole antitrust thing works versus the collective bargaining process is um, the players, because they have the ability and they have this CBA, that CBA trumps any type of antitrust things that might be going on. And so the CBA is kind of the word, right? And so it doesn't matter if you've got antitrust exemption or whatever, the CBA governs the relationship between the players and the owners. Likewise, so right now the minor league players do not have that, but if the MLBPA and the minor leaguers join the MLBPA and they do get to some type of collective bargaining agreement for the minor leaguers, or the minor leaguers are just pulled into the major league CBA, I don't know how that would work. It really makes it interesting, and the whole landscape, the minor league landscape, really is on the verge of shifting dramatically. I mean, we already saw where minor league teams were cut. Was the last 2 years ago? Was that when that happened?
Yeah, it was during 2020, so for last season and this season.
And so it'll be interesting to see, because what a lot of the owners are saying publicly, right? What Commissioner Manfred says is that, well, the minor league system is set up the way that it's set up because it gives opportunity to more minor leaguers. Because if it wasn't set up the way that they could basically manipulate minor leaguers and take advantage of them and pay them like subpar salaries, then they would not have as many minor league teams. But I really think you're at a point, and just
Bullshit.
looking at the Cubs system,
Bullshit. Sorry.
where you're telling me you're going to get rid of these players, but
Yeah.
what's going to so you've got you've got a lot of talent at the minor league system, and if you cut the minor league system much more, I mean, you're still going to have a lot of really talented players that aren't going to have a spot on a minor league roster somewhere. And so I don't think it really works that way. And now the MLBPA just the other day joined the AFL-CIO, which is going to strengthen them even more. I just think it's a really interesting set of circumstances. I kind of get into this whole thing anyways a little bit, but I think as this stuff plays out, it'll be real interesting to see, kind of what happens. And it's good. I think at the end of the day, listen, we both have kids that play baseball, and yeah, it'd be great if they, got into the minor leagues someday, and, in the major leagues is like a dream, right? But we want players that are good players that dedicate their lives to the sport, that get to the minor leagues and develop further, to be paid and to be paid for it takes years of sacrifice to get to that level. It's just, there's so much that goes into just becoming a minor league player and then remaining a minor league player. And there's so much money that these teams evaluations that they're at, you see a lot, couple, what did I see something the other day that Jerry Reinsdorf might be considering selling the White Sox?
I didn't see that. I don't
I
know.
saw that somewhere, but I don't know if that's true.
Maybe
But
they could get a new manager.
Art Moreno,
oh yeah,
talking about selling the A's and
Angels.
at valuation. Oh, I'm sorry, Angels. At valuation levels that are are all-time highs, and so there's a lot of money going on there, and I think it's going to be real interesting to see how this all plays out, this unionization possibly of the minor league players.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we're talking about 150 players, right? And that does not include, I think,
for the Cubs.
That's their state. Well, for any, it's capped at is it 180 organizationally?
180.
Yeah,
I thought it was 184, but yeah, somewhere around 180.
Yeah, and I think that's like the affiliated. So there's different roster caps, right? I mean, you got guys overseas or in the Caribbean and the Dominican Summer League, places like that, right? But let's say it's 200, just to make it a nice round figure, right? And you pay every single one of them $100,000. All right, what is that? $20 million?
Yeah.
And so 20 million across that whole, that's less than what you'd pay one free agent pitcher. You know what I mean? For across 200 players, right? So that's, again, boy, that's a small price to pay, right? And none of these guys, well, unless they're on,
and they're not making anywhere near that right now.
None of, they might be making the top guys in triple, might be, if they're on a minor league deal, right? An original one might be making $36,000 or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're talking about, and $100,000. Let's be honest, right? And they're not paid during spring training. They're not paid when they're not playing, right? They're only being paid basically from April through September. That's it. So a lot of these guys are out there doing lessons and stuff, and I'm sure some of them would continue to give lessons and do that sort of thing because they,
coach.
I mean, again, these guys,
teams,
they love
like
doing that in the winter because that's just, they love giving back. But a lot of them do it because they have to, or they're driving Uber or Lyft or whatever. So you're talking about if I'm a team, if I'm an owner and I'm looking at a $20 million on the total bottom line, right, out of a multi-billion-dollar organization or many $100 million organization, depending on where you're at. And I look at that investment of $20 million a year versus, and again, that's a significant increase over what it is, but, okay, $5 million, is what I'm paying right now for all that. I don't know. But think about now how much more development can get done with those players because they're not worried about spending X number of hours in the off season.
Yeah. And they're focused on working out. They're focused on,
they're not worried about
practicing.
their rent or making this stuff happen or whatever like that.
Well, they actually have a good life and mentally they're better, right?
Yep. Absolutely. It's an investment in just a lot. And again, it's not as if we're talking about that they've got like stock options and PTO and a 401k and all this stuff like most normal jobs do, right? So yeah, is it a great job to be making $100,000 as a 19, 20, 21-year-old playing minor league baseball? Absolutely. I think that would be, all of us would say that is awesome. And it should, right? That's the thing. There are fewer baseball players at that professional level than there are in any other industry, right? I mean, I work for a corporation that's got like 500,000 employees worldwide. Like there's a hell of a lot more people in that company than there are in baseball. So like elite level baseball players to make $100,000. And again, we're talking about some of these dudes are only going to play for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they still got to go figure out what to do.
They don't have anything left. Like you mentioned, 401ks, benefits, all these things that if you get a corporate job, you end up getting. Like they've got, when their baseball career ends, especially today where they're making like maybe $40,000 max, it ends and they don't have any money coming in. They have no money in the bank. They've saved up nothing. And so you know, as I was saying, where, you spend your whole life building up to this moment, and then you finally get signed by a team. And sure, if you get drafted, you get a signing bonus. So that's a good thing. But if you're an undrafted free agent, which there are a lot of those guys out there, or, you've been around for a while, it just, this is something that the owners have brought on themselves. This is a system that they have created and that
Mm-hmm.
they have let manifest and that they have had total control over.
Right.
And
They could have
it's,
fixed this a long time
yes,
ago.
exactly.
If
And the
they're
fact that they've
increasing
got
salaries more in the
antitrust
past, yeah.
exemption, though,
Yep.
and that's
Yep.
where it's backed them. They've backed themselves into this corner, and now they're being attacked from all sides. Right, the antitrust exemption's being attacked in Congress. The players union are attempting to unionize the players, and I think that's going to work. I don't see why it wouldn't. And they're good. They've put the minor league players and all the players, to be honest with you, because I think the major league players are probably 100% on board with this, on the defensive.
Yep.
And it just never should have gotten to a point where these guys are in the position. So I'm totally 100% in favor of anything that improves the minor leagues players,
Yeah.
living conditions and everything.
You know,
And I know
here's what's
they
funny to
have
me.
over the last couple of years with the
Yeah, and
apartments and stuff like that, but it's been so minor.
right. It was too little, too late. And I mean, great improvements, but that stuff should have been working toward. But here's a sign of how greedy Major League Baseball player and the owners are: is when you have politicians on both sides of the aisle who are coming after you for various decisions. Right, like the Republicans are all getting after them because they felt like MLB went woke with the whole taking it out of Atlanta. And, the Dems are getting after him because of just the antitrust thing in general, right? But they're all attacking this antitrust status for various reasons. But it's all because the owners and the league have been just clinging and hoarding all these profits for so long. And it's like, y'all realize, like, you're profiting 10 and 11 billion dollars every year. The smallest fraction of that you could have just put toward every year improving these conditions. But I'm absolutely all for it. But one thing I wanted to, because I know we don't have a ton of time left, but what do you think? So they have announced now, I guess officially, that the competition committee has agreed that next year they're going to change those rules. They're going to have a pitch clock for next year. They're going to limit the shift. What are your thoughts? I will share. I am fully in favor. I like them both. I like the idea of the pitch clock. I think that'll help. There's too much bullshit going on right now with the stupid, stepping out of the box, pitchers jacking around. I think that's a good thing. And I'm firmly in favor and have expressed this for years that I wanted to see them limit the shift.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you can't, right? Everybody like seems to freak out about it. Oh, in my day, we just hit it where they weren't. Yeah, in your day, you didn't have a shortstop playing 50 feet deep into the grass in the outfield and having a rover like they do in softball. And the whole, just hit it where they ain't. They need to teach people how to hit defensively. Okay, when Emmanuel Clase or whatever, Yohan Duran is throwing at 103 on the outside court. Okay, go ahead, just ride that the other way. Oh yeah, and then when he busts you in with the cutter, you go ahead and you pull that one into the gap where they left it. Like, okay, it's not, folks. These aren't the days of everybody throwing 80 poo. Okay, so anyway. There's my strongly worded statement in favor of some of those changes. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree 100%. I'm totally on board with it, especially the shift. I hate the shift. And I think it's better for players, right? I mean, you've got these players who are very good offensive players who, pull the ball maybe more than some players. I mean, Tony Gwynn probably wouldn't matter to him, right? But I mean, to a lot of guys who are very good players, and I think you see players like Kyle Schwarber really impacted by the shift. I think it's great. I want more offense. I get the strategy for trying to win, but I think offense is great. And I think pitching has gotten so good. And so I think incrementally better than offense has gotten over the years that then adding the shift in there just gives this huge advantage on the defensive side of things. It's very, very difficult. So I'm totally in favor of the shift. What I'm of banning the shift. What I wish they would have done is implemented robo-umps. I just don't know why they don't. And I don't mean for every pitch, but what I would like to see is a challenge system similar to tennis, where you get so many challenges, and if you're wrong, you lose a challenge, and if you're correct, you continue to hold the challenge.
Yeah, and you can do those things so quickly. I mean, with tennis, it's like they call for the challenge because I was watching the U.S. Open, right? They call
Takes
for it, they
seconds.
check it. Yeah, it's like 5 seconds, boom, and you move on. It doesn't impact and they've done a better job with the overall replay system. That's one thing I'll give them. I really like that the umpire comes out and has to say, again, the challenge has been upheld or the call has been overturned or whatever, right? They're saying it. It's happening much, much faster than what it was a couple of years ago. But
Yeah.
but here's the thing, like the shift in it, a lot of people are like, they should be able to hit it the other way. And again, as I said, where you hit it is not like there's this weird misconception that like a hitter can simply, like, it's slow pitch softball
Can
and they
hit the
can
ball
simply
anywhere he wants.
put it wherever they want. And it's like, I mean, to an extent, yes, the best hitters can be
That's
wanting to go a
mostly on
certain
mistake
way.
pitches, though. If the
Right.
pitcher's
And that,
hitting his
right.
pitch, you've got to
Yes.
go where the ball's pitched.
Because if I'm busting you inside with 100-mile-an-hour fastball, you're not getting that going the other way, right? You're not hitting behind your runner at first to go out to right-handed batter. If I bust you inside with 100, you're going to be lucky to get the bat on it, and if you do, you're going to be lucky that I didn't saw off your handle. So that's one thing. But again, what bothers me about it, right? And you can say, well, they should bunt, and you do see it occasionally where, again, a guy gets busted and happens to inside out one on the handle that dribbles toward where the shortstop would have been, but no longer is because of the shift, or they put it up the third baseline, and they get lucky, right? But then you have those ones where, hey, this dude just absolutely walloped a pitch. I mean, did exactly what you want. Hard, low liner, past the second baseman, easy. Oh, God, nope. There's the shortstop who scooped it up, and Nico Horner's made a few of those plays this year.
Yeah,
so, I mean, that takes it away. But then he throws the dude out, and it's like, don't tell me that guy should have just hit the other way. He just hit a major league pitch 110 miles an hour off the bat for what should have been a good clean hit, and because he had a fourth outfielder out there, then that's no longer a hit anymore. And really, and again, they're not saying you cannot move around defensively. It's that you have to have two infielders on either side of the bag, and those guys have to be playing in the dirt. I mean, that's because of the, we say, well, the hitters should have to do, okay, well, how about the defenders should have to do what they are supposed to do? Oh, well, why don't you just go catch the ball where it's hit?
Well,
why
and that's the thing that kills me is when a pitch gets hit by a batter right up the middle, and it should be a hit. I'm sorry. That's just my philosophy. If he can hit the ball right up the middle, past the pitch,
shouldn't be standing there.
It should be a hit. Yeah. There shouldn't be a guy standing there waiting for the ball.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing too, right? Like when the shift initially started, way back in the day, we used Ted Williams or whatever because he was a pull hitter, and he was able to start going the other way. Part of that, though, he went to a heavier bat, and that helped him to do that. But it was based on just the general percentage of a hitter pulling the ball. That's not what it is anymore. They're not doing that simply because they think this left-handed hitter will. They're doing it because they know exactly where this dude's going to hit it, because they have a whole spray chart that shows by percentage every spot where this dude normally hits it, and they're lining up like they know exactly. They've got cards that show them exactly where to be for every single batter. And that, again, that goes so far beyond, now that you're talking about all the data that's available. And yeah, do some of those hitters know where the pitchers like to throw it, whatever, but the hitters are at an incredible disadvantage today over what they were even 5 years ago, and especially 10 and 20 years ago. So when we talk about batting averages being down, we talk about, it's because of launch angles. I mean, yeah, our dude's trying to hit it in the air. Absolutely. But come the hell on, man. I mean, Tony Gwynn would still be a good hitter. George Brett would still be a good hitter. But neither of those dudes had to face anything like what we're seeing with today's pitchers.
Yeah.
But, we're dudes who every team's got, well, except for the Cubs. The Cubs have like one. But every team's got like multiple dudes who could throw 100 with the nastiest breaking stuff you've ever seen. And just, I mean, look at DeGrom, dude. Just watch Jacob DeGrom pitch. Or Shohei Ohtani, and you wonder, how does anybody ever get a hit? And so this is something that I think helps offense. It levels the field almost literally for the hitters. And it really, and that's the funny thing. It takes some of the strategy out of the game. Like, When's the last time you went to a game like, oh man, I cannot wait to see the Cubs have the new shift that they've been working on. Oh my God, I can't wait to watch their shift in action. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you're a
No, said no one
sociopath,
ever.
right? No one's going there. It's like, oh, I can't wait to watch the umpires in this one. That'll be tremendous. Like nobody goes there. You go to see good defense, sure, but outside of a few plays, again, Horner's made a couple of them, but generally, when I see a shift in a play that gets picked off by that, I'm pissed off because I'm like, I saw that.
Exactly.
Let's go back to this is my last thought on it. But when we were at the iCubs game here in Indy the other day, Matt Mervis had a nice clean shot right through the gap on the right side of the infield. And I'm like, hell yeah. Oh, right to the shortstop who was playing 30 feet into the grass. It was a good, clean single, and it just got wiped off the board by that. I'm like, it's just super disappointing. I don't know any, like, I don't care, man, if my team loses a few more, a few more outs because of that, because they're not, Horner can't play over there. That's fine. Let's make baseball, like, let's make it more about having to make baseball that play again. Defensively. Yeah. It shouldn't be that difficult. I think that's funny because there's a lot of people like, God, nothing pisses me off more outside of Cardinals fans telling me how the Cubs should be run than people who are like trying to explain how today's hitters need to learn how to hit to all directions. Like, you think they don't want to do that? You think they don't want to get hits? Like, it's not as easy as what you would have it to be.
And that's not something you just pick up. That's something that you work on over your entire life. I mean, that's not something that you just flip a switch on. Yeah. And some guys just have so much power to the pull side that it doesn't make sense for them to try to do. I mean,
you have to have the pitch too. Again, if you're getting one that's outside and you're able to keep your hands inside the ball and drive that thing the other way, great. Right. But at the same time, if there is a shift on, that pitcher is not throwing you outside. That's all these people, oh, you should hit the other way. They know you're trying to hit into a shift. They're going to bust you middle and in. If it goes outside, it's because they missed. That's the only, and I mean, it's just so funny to me. Oh, well.
Well, yeah, I think it's a good day. So that's a happy thing. Meanwhile, the Cubs are going on to play the Giants. Like I said earlier in the show, don't expect a lot of kind of keep you sane moments from the Cubs in terms of their lineup selection and maybe even the pitching. But the pitching, what's going to happen is you're going to see the pitchers still go. Like Smiley, Stroman, and Miley are all pitching against the Giants, but you're probably going to see them last until the fifth inning or so, and then the Cubs' absolutely terrible bullpen will be in charge, and they'll lose most of these games, which is exactly what they've been doing. So expect that to happen. Expect to see players like, I don't know, Zach McKinstry leading off. Let's see Nick Madrigal's leading off today. The lineup is out. Madrigal's leading off. And then you got Nico Horner batting cleanup. So I like to see that. Another guy that we haven't talked about that I don't want to get into right now is that seems to be regressing a bit is Nelson Velasquez. It'd be interesting to see what the Cubs end up doing with him because he just hasn't been doing it lately at all in any way, shape, or form. And so, I mean, I like the guy, but you see upside there, but I'm not sure if he's going to be a part of the team next year or not.
Yeah, where I talked about with all those other guys coming up, I don't know where the spot is for him, man.
Yeah, especially in the outfield, right?
Yeah.
So there's another potential surprise DFA candidate for the Cubs. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, going up against the Giants, 3 games. The first game starts today is at 3:05, I believe. So it's coming up here in a couple of hours, and then they play 1:20. What's up with the 6:40 starts that they've been having? Is like
they went back to that because that's what they had early in the season. It's during school, right? So during the summer when there's no school, they shifted back to the 7:05 starts. I don't know what 25 minutes or whatever 7:10 20 30 minutes what that's going to do something. But yeah, it's they had it for the first couple months of the season, so basically like April and May, and now that we're late August and September with school back in, they've gone to the earlier evening starts.
Cool.
But what's the reason for today's being later?
I don't know. Yeah, it's 3:05. It's yesterday was 1:20 on Thursday.
It's normally 1:20. It's always a 1:20 Friday, and it's weird because they've had the occasional Friday night starts, and I was thinking, okay, was this part of the Apple thing? But this isn't an Apple broadcast.
No.
And we won't get into this. We maybe could another time. But the YouTube broadcast is so much cleaner, so much sharper.
Yeah.
And the interface with YouTube is a million times better. Like the Marquee app is for shit. It is the worst app through any sports app that I have ever interfaced with. Marquee is the worst, and it is the hardest to access. It is the hardest to get set up. It's the longest to load. It's the worst to actually start the game. It fails and drops off the games all the time. It is awful. And then I pull up YouTube. It's like, click, boom, game's up, perfect picture.
Well, I would assume part of that has to do with the fact that YouTube has a lot more, a much larger budget, whereas Marquee, they've had
Marquee has to do one thing. I know they have other games, but it's like the Cubs, they own the broadcast, and they cannot operate. Like, that's they had years to work on this thing. And the app is unchanged from last year. They have made no improvements or changes.
But what I wonder is Marquee even profitable right now?
I mean, they certainly aren't paying for new developers.
They've got all the they've got all the equipment and the facilities and everything that they're paying for, and the startup costs have got to be tremendous for a network like that.
I would think.
And so I'm assuming that they're not profitable, meaning their budget's probably pretty tight. Now, if the Cubs
their advertising certainly isn't very multifaceted. I mean, it's just, but that app is garbage.
Yeah,
I mean, it is awful trying to watch the thing on a smart TV, because we have Xfinity. It's only hooked up on our main TV, but we have Fire TVs basically in the other spots. And I mean, it'll regularly just drop off, like in a commercial break, and it'll be like, oh, content can't be played. And I have to like log out of it and get back in.
That makes sense.
And if you hit watch now on the main thing, it'll pop up with an error every time. You have to like go. I can't click the watch now button on the main thing. I have to go up to the top of the feed, hit it there, then hit it again, then clear out their stupid. It is awful.
You're not in the blackout area, are you?
No, we're not in a blackout area at all.
You can watch MLB.TV if you wanted to.
No, I can't. No, I'm sorry. I am in a blackout area. So no, I cannot watch MLB.TV. Yes. That's why I have Marquee. I couldn't watch it. If I was in a blackout area, I couldn't watch Marquee. But that's if I wasn't in a blackout area, because it's only available local. And that's the other thing is I'm 3 hours away, which is really wild.
So do you not get Marquee through your cable provider?
I do. Yes. That's the only way you can watch Marquee.
And so you can, who's your cable provider?
Comcast.
So
I only have Comcast on my main TV. That's what I'm saying. I only have a Comcast box on one television.
Oh, see, I've got YouTube TV, so I can watch it like anywhere in the world.
Well, so great. I can,
streaming's the best.
Which you would think, right? But that's the other thing. It's like, it's just, but if I want to watch, or if I'm on my phone, if I'm away or whatever, but like, I just got a new TV and put it in the garage. So like, if I'm working out or whatever, ride my bike on the little trainer, I still have the television on out there, right? Because it was like $99 for a 27-inch television, or 32 or something like that, which is like unthinkable years ago. But it's just, they have, it's almost like they're actively making a product that people don't want to consume, right? It's like I hate celery.
We're not testing it.
Right, like I hate celery, and I can't imagine why I would be for. But like, if I had no other food or something like that, right? If I just had, and my wife's like, or if I don't know, maybe I found some diet that I need to change the dad bod, and I had to eat celery, but I hate it, but I'm still eating it. As I'm eating it, I'm complaining about it, and I'm making a choice to eat it, and I hate it. That's what
I love
Marquee
how
app
you
is.
Just compared the Cubs broadcasts to celery.
Yeah, it's not the broadcast itself. Yeah, it's interfacing with that app. I'm like, I hate this app. I hate the viewing experience. And yet, here I am bringing it back up to do this again. It is brutal, and they need to fix it. Anyway.
Well, we know that's not going to happen anytime soon. So
probably not.
I don't know what to tell you about that. But the Cubs do play 3 against the Giants. Hopefully hopefully we see some good things. I think we're already seeing some good things, but I wouldn't expect the Cubs to see a lot of Cubs winning over this next month. But again, a lot of talk about what's going to happen in the future. So we'll be all over that. Until next time, I think we're about done. So thanks for joining us, and
Cool.
we'll see you guys later.
See ya.